Elon Musk was recently on the Joe Rogan podcast, which I think is the biggest podcast in the world. It's one of the biggest platforms in the world. And Elon Musk is one of the richest people in the world, if not the richest person in the world, and extremely influential. Now, on this recent podcast, they didn't speak about antinatalism specifically. They refer to antinatalists basically as extinctionists. Now, we'll get into all of it, and they're not using extinctionists in a clear way, and they're referring to antinatalists, but it's not philosophical antinatalists. So we'll get into all of that. But before we get into the clip and my thoughts on it, I just wanted to give a bit of background. A while ago, I made a video on Elon Musk because he put out a post on X about extinctionists where he seemed to really be talking about antinatalists. So anyway, getting to his appearance on Joe Rogan. So there's a specific clip where they talk about antinatalists or extinctionists, which I don't think are the same thing, but I think obviously these two don't have a detailed knowledge on these things, and so they kind of merged the two. But to give some context to this clip, Joe Rogan has just asked Elon about why he bought Twitter and turned it into X. And Elon was saying that one of the reasons he did that is because he thought that Twitter was having a negative effect on civilization. He thought that there was a small group of people who had an extinctionist ideology, and he's talking about how if the internet didn't exist, it would remain in a small geographical location. But because these people were running Twitter, which is one of the biggest social media platforms on Earth, their ideology was being emitted to everyone, and it was like a mind virus, he refers to it. So let's take a look at the actual clip.
You know, a philosophy that would be ordinarily quite niche and geographically constrained, so that the fallout area would be limited, was effectively given an information weapon, information technology weapon to propagate what is essentially a mind virus to the rest of Earth. And the outcome of that mind virus is very clear if you walk around the streets of downtown San Francisco. It is the end of civilization.
And it's not just propagating the mind virus, but suppressing any opposing viewpoints.
Yes. Well, in order for the virus to propagate, it must suppress opposing viewpoints
because it doesn't stand up to scrutiny.
Correct.
Yeah.
You've felt the virus. You know? Yeah. People will try to cancel you so many times.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Yeah, I don't think you're melodramatic at all. I think it's I mean, I don't want to be melodramatic, but it's almost like a death cult.
It's a death cult. That is exactly right. It's essentially the extinctionists. Like, it's in the limit, it is that they're propagating the extinction of humanity and civilization. And there's some people who are like most of the time it's implicit. They don't but sometimes it's explicit. Like there was a guy on the front page of the New York Times who literally has the thing called the extinctionist movement, and he was quoted on the front page of the New York Times as saying, "There are 8 billion people in the world, but it would be better if there were none." And I'm like, well, buddy, you can start with yourself.
Yeah. Does he have friends? That's what always fascinates me.
Well,
here he is.
That guy.
He looks like he's not long for this earth.
He's not
Voluntary
young.
human extinction movement. That's hilarious. I'd like to party with that dude. Okay. I would just like to
That's an explicit version of the death cult.
Yeah, maybe live long and die out.
So the first thing I want to talk about is Joe Rogan and Elon Musk specifically talk about Les Knight, who, for anyone who doesn't know, is the founder, or he calls it the finder, of the voluntary human extinction movement. So essentially he begun this movement that says that humans should voluntarily not procreate so that we as a species go extinct and other animals take back the earth. Nature sort of reclaims the earth and lives on without humans around. Now, this is one form of antinatalism. Personally, it's not a form of antinatalism that I ascribe to, but Les is one of the most famous and probably successful in terms of media attention antinatalists that's out there. Now, Elon Musk tells Les Knight to start with himself by there not being any humans around, and it's quite obvious to me, even though he doesn't explicitly say it, that he's telling Les to kill himself. Now, I'm not going to rehash out my response to this because I already did it in my previous video, but Les himself did actually reply to this, and he said this, where he talks about actually he did start with himself by having a vasectomy. So he started by not procreating himself, and then he's advocating for others to do the same. Now, one thing I also want to say is that anyone who's interacted with Les knows that the guy is a really nice guy, a really kind guy, and a really thoughtful guy to interact with. And you can even see that whilst you may disagree with Les's philosophy, which I actually also do, you can recognize that it doesn't come from a hatred of humanity. Their tagline is literally, "May we live long and die out." If he hated humanity, he wouldn't want them to live long, but he wants the people who exist now to have happy and healthy lives, but simply not to create anyone else. And from his point of view, it's because we have such an impact on animals and the environment.
Extinction is a word he uses.
Yes.
No, I mean, it's literally a self-description.
Do they cover
that
him
death cult
glowingly?
was in charge of social media.
Yeah.
And still largely is at Google and Facebook, by the way.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not in favor of human extinction. They are, and they can go to hell.
Well, that guy is.
Yeah, he can go to hell.
The next thing I wanted to say is that both of them just simply say that guy is for human extinction and that is bad. And Elon says you can go to hell. This isn't actually an argument. Like, I know they're having a casual conversation here, but you would expect that they'd at least do one throwaway argument to at least communicate to people why they think human extinction is bad. Just simply saying that it is bad is not an argument against it. And also, Elon keeps on referring to the idea that human extinction may be good as a cult. And don't get me wrong, there may be some people who hold this opinion that do express culty vibes, but this is the case in so many different communities. But what seems more accurate to me to be labeled as a cult is an ideology that continually imposes suffering and death on people. It simply just keeps going because the people who exist now want to, and the future people don't have a choice as to whether they will be brought into existence. Those people are just going to create them, impose that suffering and death on them, and if you disagree, well, you can go to hell. But I'm not going to go around calling natalists cult members or natalism a cult, because I don't think it's useful. And also, I don't actually think it is particularly accurate, but I don't think it's accurate to call antinatalism a cult either. But I just wanted to make that point that these guys are throwing around words. It's more Elon here. Elon is throwing around words and he's not even making any arguments. And he's literally on the biggest platform ever. If he wanted to communicate to all the extinctionists why extinction is bad and why he thinks humans should continue to exist, he literally has the platform to do it there, but he didn't choose to.
That guy seems silly. I
well,
would like to hang
it's-
out with him, though. I would like to find out what makes him tick. I bet that guy is fascinating.
And also, it's cool that Joe was saying there that he'd actually be interested to talk to Les and get him on because he thinks he'd be an interesting guy. And it would be cool to see Les on Joe Rogan.
Well,
If you get him alone for a few days.
I mean, I'm in
dig
favor of. I mean, I'm pro-environment, but the in the limit, if you take environmentalism to an extreme, you start to view humanity as a plague on the surface of the earth, like a mold or something.
Right.
But this is actually false. The Earth could take probably 10 times the current civilization. The population you could 10x the population without destroying the rainforest. The environmental movement, and I'm an environmentalist, has gone too far. They've gone way too far. If you start thinking that humans are bad, then the natural conclusion is humans should die out.
And the final thing Elon says here is that he's an environmentalist, but he thinks that environmentalism can go too far. And I think that's how he perceives extinctionism. He perceives it as purely environmental thing. And I want to say two things on that. The first thing I want to say, some people may think that it is better for a species to go extinct via non-reproduction for reasons that are completely independent to the environment, just for simply philanthropic ethical reasons. They think that continually bringing new beings into existence is a harm to those beings. The second thing I want to say is just my personal opinion on this and the framing of antinatalism is that actually I don't think the best framing is environmentalism. I think it gets into murky waters and I think it's heavily politicized, and so it can often derail the conversation, when if you just kept it on the ethics, I think the conversation, whilst it wouldn't be easy, it would be cleaner than the environmental topic, because environmentalism gets into empirics and it gets into politicization. Anyway, I just wanted to include some quick thoughts there on what I thought about Elon Musk and Joe Rogan's comments on extinctionists, and I think implicitly they're referring to antinatalists as well, even though they may not understand what philosophical antinatalists are. But let me know what you thought of Elon Musk and Joe Rogan in this clip. Let me know what you thought of my thoughts on it, and I'll see you in the next one.